basic requirement for all living organisms is food. Major components of our food are carbohydrates, proteins, fats. Nutrients required in small quantities are minerals and vitamins. Nutrients required in small quantities are minerals and vitamins. Dash provide energy and dash for growth and repair of tissues. Food, organic materials. Food, organic materials provide energy and food provide energy and organic materials for growth and repair of tissues. Question number 5. It play important role in metabolic process. It play important role in metabolic process and also prevent the dehydration of the body. Water. Water play important role in metabolic processes and also prevent the dehydration of the body. Question number 6. Chemical nature of the food at the time of intake. Bio macromolecule. Chemical nature of the food at the time of intake. Bio macromolecules. Question number 7. Process of conversion of the complex food substances into simple absorbable forms is called digestion. Process of conversion of complex food substances into simple absorbable forms is called digestion. Question number 8. Methods of digestion and processes in human, mechanical and biochemical methods. Alimentary canal and associated glands are collectively considered as digestive system. Alimentary canal and associated glands are collectively considered as digestive system. Question number 10. Anterior opening of alimentary canal is mouth. Dash lead to the buccal cavity or oral cavity. Mouth. It has a number of teeth and muscular tongue. Dash has a number of teeth and muscular tongue. Oral cavity. Each tooth embedded in the socket of jawbone. This type of attachment is called thecodont type of dentition. Thecodont type of dentition. Majority of mammals, including human beings, form two sets of teeth during lifetime. This type of dentition is called diphyodont type of dentition. Question number 15. An adult human has 4 types of teeth. Such type of dentition is called heterodont type of dentition. Heterodont type of dentition. Teeth formed at childhood are called milk teeth. Teeth formed at childhood are called milk teeth. Teeth of adult human is called permanent teeth. Dentition formula of human is 2123 by 2123. In adult stage, dentition formula of human being is 2123 by 2123. Name the teeth in order on each half of upper jaw or lower jaw. Incisors, canines, premolars, molars. Incisors, canines, premolars, and molar. Hard chewing surface of the teeth is made up of enamel and helps in the mastication of the food. Dash is a freely movable muscular organ, tongue, attached to the floor of buccal cavity, attached to the floor of buccal cavity, and the frenulum, by the frenulum. Small projections on the upper surface of the tongue are called papillae. Small projections on the upper surface of the tongue are called papillae. Taste buds are present in papillae. The oral cavity leads into a short. The oral cavity leads into a short pharynx, which serves as a common passage for food and air. Common opening for esophagus and trachea, pharynx. Cartilaginous flap, which prevents the entry of food into the glottis, epiglottis. Opening of windpipe, which opens into the pharynx. Opening of windpipe, which opens into the pharynx. Glottis. Thin, long tube of alimentary canal into which pharynx opens is thin long tube of pharynx which opens into the alimentary canal is esophagus. Tube which extends posteriorly, passing through the neck, thorax, and diaphragm is esophagus. J-shaped bag-like structure of alimentary canal, stomach. Esophagus opens into stomach. Part of alimentary canal located in the upper left portion of the abdominal cavity, stomach. C-shaped portion of alimentary canal. C-shaped portion of alimentary canal, duodenum. C-shaped portion of alimentary canal is duodenum. Long coiled portion of small intestine, jejunum. Highly coiled portion of small intestine, ileum. Small blind sac of alimentary canal, cecum. Small blind sac of alimentary canal is cecum. Narrow finger-like tubular projection of alimentary canal, appendix. Anterior, middle, posterior portions of small intestine. Anterior, middle, posterior portions of small intestine. Duodenum is the anterior portion. Jejunum is the middle portion. Ileum is the posterior portion. Three major portions of stomach are cardiac stomach, pyloric stomach, and fundic stomach. It includes body also. That means in some books it was given as four major portions that includes body. Part of the stomach which receives esophagus, cardiac stomach. Part of the stomach which opens into the small intestine, pyloric stomach. Part of the small intestine which stomach opens into duodenum. Part of the small intestine which opens into large intestine, ileum. Part of the large intestine which opens into rectum. Descending colon, or we can say if it is given in some books as sigmoid colon. After descending colon, we'll find sigmoid colon actually. Muscular sphincter, which regulates the opening of esophagus into stomach. Cardiac sphincter, or also called gastroesophageal sphincter. The opening of the stomach into the duodenum is guarded by pyloric sphincter. Then A, mouth, B, pharynx, C, cardiac stomach, duodenum, and E, pyloric stomach. A, mouth, B, pharynx, C, cardiac stomach, D, duodenum, E, pyloric stomach, F, jejunum, G, fundic stomach, H, oral cavity, I, ileum, ascending colon, descending colon, transverse colon, rectum, anus, esophagus. We have to put them in order. Let me A, H, B, O, C, G, E, D, F, I, J, K, L, K, M, N. This is the order. Part of alimentary canal which contain symbiotic microorganisms. Part of alimentary canal which contain symbiotic microorganisms. What is that? Cecum. Part of alimentary canal which is considered as vestigial organ. Vermiform appendix. Vermiform appendix. A narrow finger-like projection which a narrow finger-like projection, tubular projection, which is a vestigial organ, Wait a minute. Arises from the vermiform appendix, and it arises from cecum. The wall of alimentary canal from esophagus to rectum. Wall of alimentary canal from esophagus to rectum possesses layers. How many layers? 4 layers. Then serosa, muscularis, submucosa, and mucosa. There are 4 layers: serosa, muscularis, submucosa, and mucosa. Outermost layer of the wall of alimentary canal is serosa. Outermost layer of the wall of alimentary canal is serosa. Then innermost layer of the lining of the lumen of alimentary canal is mucosa. Layer which forms folds in the stomach of small intestine. Layer which form folds in the stomach of small intestine. Mucosa. Layer which is made up of thin mesothelium with some connective tissue. Serosa. Layer of gut with muscles. Muscularis. Layer of gut with muscles is muscularis. Type of muscles in the wall of gut. Smooth muscles. Type of muscles in the wall of gut. Smooth muscles. Layer with epithelium of visceral organs. Layer with epithelium of visceral organs. Serosa. Layer with epithelium of visceral organs. Serosa. Arrangement of these muscles of a muscularis. Muscles of muscularis from outside to inside. First, outer longitudinal muscles and inner circular muscles. Part of gut with oblique muscle layer in muscularis. Stomach. Wall of the gut which is formed of loose connective tissue containing nerves, blood vessels, and lymph vessels. Submucosa. Part of the gut whose submucosa is with glands. Duodenum. It contains Brunner glands. Irregular folds of the mucosa in the stomach are called rugae. Irregular folds of the mucosa in the small intestine are called villi. Irregular folds in the mucosa of the small intestine are called villi. Cells of the lining the villi produce numerous microscopic projections called microvilli, which we call it as a brush border. The cells of the lining of the villi produce numerous microscopic projection called microvilli, giving a brush border appearance. Microscopic projections of villi facilitate the increased surface area. Large lymphatic vessels in microvilli are called lacteals. Large lymphatic vessels in the microvilli are called lacteals. Dash are supplied with capillaries and a large lymphatic vessels called villi. Villi are supplied with capillaries and a large lymphatic vessels called lacteal. Cells of mucosal epithelium which secrete mucus. Goblet cells, the product of mucosal epithelium which help in lubrication. Mucus. Arrange the given layers of intestine from outside to inside. So first we'll get mucosa, then inside to outside, outside to inside. That means we'll get arrange the given layers of intestine from outside to inside. So first we get serosa, then muscularis, then submucosa, then mucosa. Glands of mucosa in the stomach are called gastric glands. Glands of mucosa in the stomach are called gastric glands. Glands of mucosa in ileum at the basis of villi as crypts are called crypts of Leberkan. Crypts of Leberkan. All the four layers in the wall of alimentary canal show modifications in different parts. Yes, true. The digestive glands associated with the alimentary canal include salivary glands, liver, pancreas. Number of pairs of salivary glands in human, 3. Salivary glands at cheek. Salivary glands at cheek. Parotid gland. Salivary glands at below the tongue. Salivary glands below the tongue. Sublingual glands. Salivary glands at lower jaw. Submaxillary or submandibular. Submaxillary or submandibular glands. Dash glands are situated just outside. Dash glands are situated just outside. First, I have to say salivary glands are situated just outside the buccal cavity, and secrete salivary juice into the buccal cavity. A dash is the largest gland of the body. Liver is the largest gland of the body, which weigh about 1.2 kg to 1.5 kg. Compound elongated organ situated between the limbs of U-shaped duodenum is pancreas. Digestive gland which is situated in the abdominal cavity just below the diaphragm, liver. Digestive gland with both exocrine and endocrine portions. Digestive gland with both exocrine and endocrine portions, pancreas. Number of lobes in the liver. Two lobes. Pancreas is called compound gland, mixed gland, because it has both exocrine and endocrine portions. It has both exocrine and endocrine portions. Structural and functional unit of liver are hepatic lobules. Exocrine portion of the pancreas. Exocrine portion of the pancreas secrete. Exocrine portion of the pancreas secrete enzymes. Cells in the hepatic lobules are called hepatic cells. Cells in the hepatic lobules are called hepatic cells. Endocrine portion of pancreas secrete hormones. These cells are arranged in the form of cards in hepatic lobule. Hepatic cells. Cells will secrete bile juice in hepatic lobules. Hepatic cells. Each dash of liver is covered by a thin connective tissue sheath. Each lobule of liver is covered by a connective tissue sheath called Glissen's capsule. Bile secreted by hepatic cells. Bile secreted by hepatic cell and passes through hepatic ducts and is stored and concentrated in a thin muscular sac called gallbladder. Duct of gallbladder is called cystic duct. Duct of gallbladder along with hepatic duct formed from the liver forms common bile duct. Common hepatopancreatic duct is the combination of common hepatopancreatic duct is a combination of common bile duct and pancreatic duct. Common bile duct and pancreatic duct. Common hepatopancreatic duct opens into duodenum. Common hepatopancreatic duct carries bile juice and pancreatic juice. Bile juice and pancreatic juice. Sphincter which guards the opening of common hepatopancreatic duct is sphincter of Oddi. Cystic duct plus hepatic duct. Cystic duct plus hepatic duct. Common bile duct. Common bile duct plus pancreatic duct. Common hepatopancreatic duct. Common hepatopancreatic duct. Two major functions of buccal cavity are mastication of food and facilitation of swallowing. Mastication of food and facilitation of swallowing. The dash and the dash with the help of dash masticate and mix up food thoroughly. The teeth and the tongue. The teeth and the tongue with the help of mucus masticate and mix up food thoroughly. Mucus in saliva helps in lubricating and adhering the masticated food particles. Bolus. Dash is then conveyed into the pharynx and then into the dash by swallowing or the bolus is then conveyed into the pharynx and then into the esophagus by swallowing or also called deglutition. Successive waves of muscular contraction of esophagus are called peristalsis. Food from esophagus reaches the stomach by peristalsis. Process called peristalsis. Sphincter control the passage of food into the stomach. Gastroesophageal sphincter. Electrolytes present in the saliva are sodium, potassium, chloride ions, and bicarbonate ions. Enzymes of saliva are enzymes of saliva. Salivary amylase, salivary amylase, and lysozyme. Components of gastric juice are HCl, pepsinogen, prorenin, mucus, caseal intrinsic factor. Mucus caseal intrinsic factor. HCl, pepsinogen, prorenin, caseal intrinsic factor. Components of the pancreatic juice are pancreatic juice components: trypsinogen, chymotrypsinogen, procarboxypeptidase, amylases, lipases, nucleases. Components of intestinal juice are disaccharidases, dipeptidases, lipases, and nucleosidases. Components of bile juice are bile salts and bile pigments. Bile salts and bile pigments. Components of bile juice are bile salts and bile pigments. Along with that, we'll find cholesterol and also phospholipids are present here. Cholesterol and phospholipids are present. Enzymes for the digestion of carbohydrates: amylase, maltase, sucrase, lactase. Amylase, maltase, sucrase, lactase. Okay, enzyme for the digestion of carbohydrate: amylase, maltase, sucrase, lactase. So we call it as disaccharidases. Sucrase, maltase, lactase are commonly called disaccharide. Enzyme for the digestion of proteins: pepsin from stomach, gastric juice; renin from gastric juice; trypsin, pancreatic juice; chymotrypsin from pancreatic juice; procarboxypeptidase activated in the form of carboxypeptidases from pancreatic juice; aminopeptidases, tripeptidases, and dipeptidases. These three are from intestinal juice. Aminocarboxypeptidases, aminopeptidases, tripeptidases, dipeptidases from intestinal juice. Enzyme for the digestion of fats: lipases. Enzyme for the digestion of nucleic acids: nucleases, which are called DNAase and RNAase. And nucleosidases. Initiation of the chemical digestion done with these foodstuffs: carbohydrates. Chemical digestion begins at oral cavity. Enzyme for the digestion of carbohydrates in salivary juice: salivary amylase, which is called ptyalin. Salivary amylase, which is also called ptyalin. Enzyme convert the starch into maltose in salivary juice. Enzyme convert the starch into maltose in excuse me, salivary juice, salivary amylase. pH required for the digestion of food in oral cavity: 6.8. Approximate amount of starch hydrolyzed in oral cavity by salivary amylase: 30%. Disaccharide formed after the hydrolysis of carbohydrates in oral cavity: maltose. Enzyme of salivary juice which acts as antibacterial agent and prevent infection: lysozyme. Three major types of cells in gastric glands are neck cells, peptic cells, and parietal cells. Next cells, peptic cells and parietal cells. Cells of gastric gland will secrete mucus. Next cells. Cells of gastric gland will secrete pepsinogen and prorenin. Peptic cells are chief cells. Cells of gastric gland will secrete HCl and intrinsic factor. Parietal cells are oxyntic cells. The stomach stores the food dash for 2 dash hours, 4 to 5 hours. Chemical nature and pH of gastric juice. Chemical nature is acidic and pH is 1.8. The food mixes thoroughly with the acidic gastric juice. The food mixes thoroughly with the acidic gastric juice and of the stomach by the churning movements of its muscular wall, and it is called, now the food is called chyme. Food is said to be chyme. Inactive proenzyme pepsinogen converted active pepsin with the help of HCl. Inactive proenzyme prorenin converted into active renin with the help of HCl. Proteolytic enzyme of gastric juice, pepsin. Proteolytic enzyme found in gastric juice of infants, renin. Proteolytic enzyme of gastric juice which converts proteins into proteases and peptones, pepsin. Proteolytic enzyme of gastric juice which digests milk proteins, renin. The dash and dash present in the gastric juice play an important role in lubrication and protection of the mucosal epithelium from excoriation by the highly concentrated hydrochloric acid. Mucus and bicarbonates. Mucus and bicarbonate. Factor essential for the absorption of vitamin B12. Causal intrinsic factor or intrinsic factor. Major function of vitamin B12 is helps in the maturation of RBC. Chemical medium required for the digestion of food in stomach is acidic medium is required. Enzyme which converts the inactive trypsinogen converted into active trypsin. Enterokinase. Enzyme required is enterokinase. Autocatalytic enzymes of the human are pepsin and trypsin. Enzyme of pancreatic juice which converts inactive enzymes of pancreatic juice into active. Trypsin. Bile pigments include bilirubin and biliverdin. Bilirubin and biliverdin. Bile salts include sodium glycolate and sodium tarcholate. Sodium glycolate and sodium tarcholate. Enzymes of bile juice are no enzymes at all. There is no enzyme in the bile juice. Breaking down of the fats into very small micelles is called emulsification. We say it as emulsification. Dash activate lipases. Bile activate lipases. Cells of intestinal mucosal epithelium which secrete mucus. Goblet cells. The secretions of the breast border cells of the mucosa along with the secretions of the goblet cell constitute intestinal juice or succus entericus. We can say intestinal juice or succus entericus. Enzyme which converts the proteins, peptones, proteases into dipeptide. Trypsin and chymotrypsin. trypsin and chymotrypsin are doing this. Conversion of the polysaccharides into disaccharide is possible by amylase of pancreatic juice. Fats are broken down by lipase with the help of bile into di and monoglycerides. Dash in the dash acts on nucleic acid. Nucleases acts on nucleic acid to form nucleotides and nucleosides. Enzymes of the dash act on the end products of the pancreatic juice. Enzymes of the succus entericus, intestinal juice, succus entericus, act on the end products of the pancreatic juice reactions to form the respective simple absorbable form by succus entericus or intestinal juice. Final steps of the digestion process occur very close to this area. Mucosal epithelial cells of the intestine, where it facilitates digestion with the help of intestinal juice. Enzymes required for the conversion of the dipeptides into amino acid, dipeptidases. Maltase acts on maltose and converts them into 2 glucose molecules. Lactase acts on lactose and is simplified as 1 glucose molecule and 1 galactose. Sucrose acts on dash and is simplified as sucrose acts on sucrase acts on sucrose and is simplified as glucose and fructose. Nucleotides are converted into nucleosides by nucleotidases. Nucleosides are converted into sugars and bases by nucleosidases. Di and monoglycerides are converted into fatty acids and glycerol by lipases. Enzymatic action of salivary amylase. Enzymatic action of salivary amylase converts starch into maltose. Enzymatic action of trypsin, chymotrypsin, carboxypeptidase converts proteins into peptones, proteoses, and proteins into peptones and proteoses into dipeptides. Enzymatic action of pancreatic amylase converts polysaccharides into disaccharides. Enzymatic action of lipases converts fats into fatty acids and glycerol. Enzymatic action of nucleases, which mean DNAs and RNAs, converts nucleic acids into nucleic acid, which mean DNA and RNA into nucleotides. Enzymatic action of dipeptidases converts the dipeptide into amino acids. Enzymatic action of maltases converts the maltose into 2 glucose molecules. Converts the maltose into 2 glucose molecules. Enzymatic action of sucrase converts the sucrose into glucose and fructose. Enzymatic action of nucleosidases converts the nucleosides into nitrogenous bases, sugars and nitrogenous bases. The breakdown of macromolecule occur in the dash region. That means digestion occurs. Major digestion occur in the duodenum. The simple substances formed after the digestion are absorbed in the jejunum and ileum. Jejunum and ileum. No significant digestive activity occur in the large intestine. True. Secretions of mucus which help in adhering the waste undigested particle together and lubricating it for an easy passage. This process occurs at large intestine. Wall which prevents the backflow of fecal matter from the large intestine to small intestine. Ileocecal wall. Part of large intestine which temporarily stores the fecal matter. Rectum. Chemical sense which stimulate the secretion of saliva. That what you call gustatory sense, taste, and olfactory, smell. Gastric secretions and intestinal secretions are influenced by neural signal or chemical signal. Both. The muscular activities of the different parts of the alimentary canal can also be moderated by neural mechanism. Both local and central nervous system involvement is there. Hormonal control of the secretion of digestive juices is carried out by local hormones produced by gastric and intestinal. Process which the end products of digestion pass through the intestinal mucosa into the blood or lymph is called absorption. Dash are carried out by the passive, active, or facilitated transport mechanisms. Absorption. Small amounts of monosaccharides like glucose, amino acids, some of electrolytes like chloride ion are generally absorbed by simple diffusion. Passage of monosaccharides like glucose, amino acid, and some of electrolytes like chloride ions into the blood depends upon concentration gradients. Method of absorption of fructose and some amino acid. Facilitated transport. If absorption possible based on the concentration gradient, this process is called simple diffusion. If absorption possible based on the carrier ions like sodium, this mechanism is called facilitated transport. Transport of water into the blood depends upon concentration gradient. The dash transport occur again is the concentration gradient, hence require energy. Active transport. To absorb the various nutrients, wait a minute. Like amino acid, monosaccharide, glucose, electrolyte like sodium, absorbed into the blood again is the concentration gradients using the energy. What do you call this kind of transport? Active transport. Such transport is called active transport. Why fatty acids and glycerol cannot be absorbed into the blood? They are insoluble. Fatty acids and glycerol are first incorporated into small droplets called micelles. Fatty acids and glycerol are coated with proteins in the intestinal mucosal cells and called as chylomicrons. called as chylomicron. Myceles moves from lumen of small intestine to intestinal mucosal cells. Lumen of small intestine to intestinal mucosal cell. Myceles become chylomicrons in intestinal mucosal cells, forming a protein coat. And by forming a protein coat, chylomicron moves from intestinal mucosal cells to lacteals. Chylomicron shift from lymph to dash to transport towards the body parts. Bloodstream. From the lymph, they shift to the bloodstream. Maximum absorption of nutrients are possible here. In small intestine. Maximum absorption possible in small intestine. Certain drugs coming in contact with the mucosa of mouth and lower side of the tongue are absorbed into the blood capillaries lining them. Absorption of water, simple sugar, alcohol takes place at stomach. Principal organ for absorption for nutrients is small intestine. The digestion is completed hence here and absorbed through the mucosa into the bloodstream and lymph, small intestine. Absorption of water and some minerals and drugs takes place here, large intestine. Water absorption is possible here, stomach and large intestine. Alcohol absorption occurs here, stomach. The absorbed substances finally reach to the tissues which utilize them for their activities. This process we call assimilation. The process is said to be assimilation. Tissues, absorbed substances finally reach to the tissues, and the process we call assimilation. The digestive waste is solidified into coherent feces in rectum. Dash initiate the neural flux, causing an urge or desire for its removal. Rectum. Egation of feces to the outside through the anal opening is called defecation. Process of egation is, it's an involuntary process. Movement which carries the feces out through anus is peristaltic movement. Movement is called peristaltic movement. Inflammation of the intestinal tract is the most common element due to these infections, bacterial and viral infections. Helminth parasite which can cause infections in the intestine. It may be tapeworm, Taenia solium, or pinworm, Enterobius vermicularis, hookworm, Ankylostoma duodenale, or threadworm, and roundworm. Then the liver is affected, the skin, eyes turn yellow due to the deposit of bile pigment. Identify the disease, jaundice. Ejection of the stomach contents through mouth is called vomiting. Abnormal frequency of the bowel movement and increased liquidity of the fecal discharge is known as diarrhea. Location of vomit center in medulla. Location of vomit center in, wait a minute, we have a question actually. Location of vomit center is medulla oblongata. A feeling of precedes before vomiting, we call nausea. Vomiting sensation, we say nausea. The feces are retained within the rectum as the bowel movement occur irregularly. Constipation. In this condition, the food is not properly digested, leading to a feeling of fullness in digestion. Inadequate enzyme secretion, anxiety, food poisoning, overeating, and spicy food leads to indigestion. So these are the questions of NCERT text, that every sentence of the NCERT textbook is converted as a question here. So just revise like this. Thank you.